My husband took out the red rope technique, skillfully tying one's own wife. My wife gave a clear smile. The two of them forgot everything. Play until exhausted. Late at night, the sleeping Meeson is constantly being held by one hand. Lhasa thought she was her husband, but when I turned around, I was surprised. Unexpectedly a masked gangster. Subsequently, Jiedzu's taken to the living room. What made him even more desperate was, his husband is already waiting here, long term, bound all over the sofa. But he pretended to be calm, continuously appeasing the emotions of the gangsters. Tell them they won't call the police. After hearing this, the two thugs hurry to search for property, but they only turned it up to a few hundred yuan in total. How could a gangster be willing? In order to satisfy them, the husband immediately dumped his wife, Meeson. Helplessly, I had to take the gangsters to find my own safe, then return to the living room. This is when the gangsters asked for the password of the safe again, and Qiaobei also followed the instructions of the bandits, urged Meesons to say the password. Faced with the threat of gangsters and the compromise of Qiaobei, my wife finally gave me the password for the safe. 6060. After hearing this, the gangster went to the bank to withdraw money, but another gangster took up the idea of Meeson, and when Qiaobei saw this, tears rolled down his face. Close your own eyes. Silently endure all this. After the gangsters leave, early the next morning, Qiaobei called the police. He gave the police a detailed explanation of the lost property in their home, but at this moment, my wife still cannot escape the shadow of last night, recalling the North Bridge, pushing oneself out, facing the threat of gangsters alone, curling up in the corner with sadness. When taking notes, Qiaobei recalled the scene at that time, when going to the bathroom by oneself. I met two thugs in the living room. He dare not resist the gangsters, tell them to pick up their things and leave. Then the bridge north turns on the lights. Only then did I realize that the gangster had a knife in his hand, and the nanny also stated that she was tied up by the gangsters at the time. This matter has nothing to do with oneself. With a very excited expression, after the recording is completed, Qiaobei takes his wife to a restaurant for dinner. Tell yourself your guess. Suspected to be a nanny issue. Jiazi remained silent. Qiaobei comforted him and said, "Don't be upset." And at this moment, Jiazi questioned that both the bandits in Qiaobei were short stature, and one of them is still lame. But Qiaobei said they had knives in their hands. Do not act recklessly. Regarding this, my wife has nothing to say. It's late at night. Qiaobei business trip. Jiedzu came to the living room alone. Recalling what Qiaobei said again, he only discovered that the culprit had a knife after turning on the light. That means, before turning on the lights, he has already compromised with the gangsters, the tall and burly north of the bridge, facing gangsters, but not as their own nanny. What is the truth of repeatedly emphasizing one's innocence? The gangster bullied his wife in front of his husband late at night, and the husband on the side remained indifferent. He always compromises, causing a huge rift in the relationship between the couple. This day, the nanny was taken away by the police. Retrial, late at night, Mustard at home alone, remembering that night again. Pick up the cue and swing it towards the gangster. But all of this, it's just his fantasy. All he had in front of him was an empty and unoccupied room. The disheartened wife cut off the red rope she used to play with, and at this point, the police officer in charge of this case, Gao, called to comfort Mustard. I have increased my police force to patrol around his house. The ring, lacking a sense of security, was moved by Xie Gao. The next day, invite Xie Gao to dine with oneself, and Xie Gao also stated that there's no need to worry about the prisoner's affairs. The results will come out soon. And at this point, Jiedzu asked Xie Gao again, if he encounters the same situation as himself, what will he do? And Xie Gao did not provide an accurate answer either. Faced with the entanglement of the ring, Xie Gao is also a bit impatient. Tell him to let go of this matter. Don't embarrass yourself. You invited me to dinner today. You are not here for a meeting with me. Don't think so much about it. Okay. After, Jiazi heard an incident of righteous deeds, upon hearing the news and visiting, but found out that the other party was just a thin and weak little boy. This makes him even more dissatisfied with Qiaobei. Not long after, Qiaobei returned from a business trip, drive to pick up Jiazi and go home. Genuine Mustard asked himself again, what would have happened if they had resisted at that time? Qiaobei understands that his wife is still blaming him. Tell his wife that he actually resisted and kicked the gangster. But I also stumbled over it, so the gangsters tied themselves up. He scolded Jiazi for not knowing the situation at the time. Just blame yourself at will. And at this point, the police have cleared up the case. The two thugs are the nanny's husband and brother respectively. After the truth was revealed, Jiazi asked again about Qiaobei. If these two thugs are not relatives, what else would you do to yourself? Qiaobei was also speechless by the neurotic Meeson. Turn off the light, sleeping with mustard seeds in your arms. But Jiazi even dreamed about that night. So the next day, Xie Gao was called in. Tell yourself in detail what exactly happened that night. When asked if Qiaobei rebelled, but Xie Gao said, I can't remember clearly. You're not sleeping. Wei Ying's gradually disintegrating mustard seeds, but suddenly realized that he was pregnant. Unexpected pregnancy of women. but found out that the child was not her husband's. Not long ago, two thugs humiliated their husband's wife in front of him, but the husband remained indifferent. Allow the robbers to do whatever they want. His weakness and incompetence make the wife completely cold-hearted, living in the shadow of that night every day. And even more terrifying is, he was also pregnant with the child of the gangster. Jayazi hides from Kyobe, secretly knocked out the child, can face Hashimoto's questioning. But Meeson said, "I don't know I'm pregnant. I took cold medicine and had a chest x-ray. If we continue to give birth, may affect children's development." But Hashimoto quickly debunked the mustard seed. The chest x-ray was done by both of them a long time ago. Chiabe thought it was Jiedzu, who didn't want his own child. The two of them had a big argument about it. Jayazi, who has nothing to rely on, has found the police officer Xiegao. When the two of them are taking a walk, Xiegao told him a story. "One of my colleagues and friends, because he was stabbed while apprehending a fugitive. Many people spontaneously came to visit him. Back then, he was rated as the most popular police officer in the district. On a visit home, colleagues are in a hurry to catch the train. Didn't take off the police uniform. But on the train home I met a robber with a gun. Colleagues, to ensure the safety of passengers, abandoned resistance. But when the robbers leave, angry passengers swarmed in. Do something for, go forward and insult, and beat up colleagues. Afterwards, he kept reporting him, make him famous again. But this time, it was after being infamous. This colleague almost collapsed. This matter has become a knot in his heart. Mustard has many feelings after listening to it. He didn't continue to stay in the emotional quagmire with Joban, but choose to escape. After divorce, going alone to a strange city to start anew. But Xiegao couldn't let go of the guilt in his heart. Face your heart not directly. The colleague he mentioned originally, it was precisely during a mission that he was the first person beyond the scope of the mission to charge up and fight the robbers. The robber was shot dead on the spot by the police who arrived. But Xiegao was also seriously injured. Life and death are uncertain, but it also relieved his long-standing unease and psychological burden. Everyone has a hero's dream in their heart, can blindly impose personal wishes on others. It will only lead to the birth of tragedy.